Good afternoon and welcome to Health and Living with me, Tee Shiao Eek. It's our Psychiatry series today, and we're looking at the news that from today, the 1st of August, you can call Befrienders KL for free whenever you are in need of emotional support or counselling. So this news came because the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, MCMC, has joined forces with 8 telcos in Malaysia to waive call charges to the Befrienders helpline. So we take a look today at how Befrienders services help people with mental and emotional problems, what challenges Befrienders faces in providing this free service, and what's next on the national agenda to strengthen mental health services. So in order to address all of these issues, we have in the studio with us Kenny Lim, the Executive Director of Befrienders KL, as well as Dr. Kartini Abdul Jabar, Outreach Director for Befrienders KL as well, and also Associate Professor Dr. Amer Siddiq bin Amir Nordin, Consultant Psychiatrist from University Malaya Medical Center. Welcome everyone.
Hi.
If you have any questions, you can call us at 03-7733-2900 or WhatsApp us at 018-789-8899. Also tweet us at BFM Radio. Perhaps we can start by going around the room first with what was your response to this news, Kenny?
Okay. When we heard this news, right, we were very, very excited, and we are still very excited about it, yeah, because it means a lot really to us, and also to those people who are struggling, yeah, those who are feeling suicidal. It means that they do not have to worry about the cost when they need to get in touch with the befrienders, and then there's no more cases like, when I'm talking halfway on the line, it gets cut off because I don't have enough credit, or I don't have to worry that, I don't even have the credit to start calling the befrienders. So we are really excited about it and very thankful also that this is happening.
Okay. Yeah. And Dr. Kartini, what was your response?
Well, same as Kenny. I've had callers who actually had their credit cut short, so the call was cut short. And I've also had callers who asked whether it was a free line or not. And every single time we had to tell them that they have to pay for it, but our services of giving the befriending emotional support was free. And that's sort of like, it becomes a difficult part for them because they have to pay for it. So knowing that now it's going to be a free line, I think that's very good news.
Okay. And Dr. Amer, what did you think?
Yahoo! Yahoo! I think, first of all, we want to thank all the people involved to make this happen. And all I can say to everyone here is together everyone achieves more. And I think we've done that.
And, I think perhaps you don't automatically or instinctively think about cost when you think about the service that Befrienders is providing, because already it's a free service that's provided by your volunteers, isn't it, Kenny?
Yes.
But cost is an issue because presumably we're not talking about a short 1 minute, 2 minute
Correct.
call,
Yeah.
are we? Well, perhaps you could walk us through how a call is when you receive it.
Okay. So basically, you're right. A call would not last just for 5 or 10 minutes, yeah? A call from someone who's in distress, yeah, can go up to 40 minutes, an hour, even an hour and a half, yeah? So when someone calls us, it depends because different callers will be different, yeah? So there are callers who are very direct and straightforward. So when they call us, they would just begin and they would tell us what's troubling them. Okay, but we also have callers who may be feeling a little bit scared when they call us, like because maybe they don't know what to expect. Maybe it's the first time they are talking about their problems to someone, yeah, and maybe this is something that has troubled them a long time. So calling from callers who are like this, right? It takes a while for them to warm up. Yeah. In cases like this, we will assure them of confidentiality. We will give them time. We will tell them that, hey, it's okay. You can take your time. We will be here for you. So we try to build up that rapport at the beginning of the call so that they feel more comfortable to open up.
So all of that takes quite a bit of time before you can actually get to the issues that are troubling them.
Right. To some of the callers, yes.
Dr. Kartini, How does befriending, because the name befrienders comes from that verb to befriend someone,
Yeah.
how does befriending help somebody who's in need of emotional support when they're a distance from you? You're just talking to them through a phone call.
Well, our callers usually, when they're outside in the society, they feel that they're being judged whenever they have any issues or problems. So going on the phone, it feels as if it's a personal issue that they can talk to just anyone. So that's why when we have our calls, sometimes they're a bit wary and we have to reassure them, and it takes time before we can build that rapport. For befriending, essentially how we help them is by giving emotional support, because at that time they're ambivalent about feeling suicidal. They feel like, do I do it or do I not do it? So when they're calling us at that point, they're at the middle and in the middle. So what we do is we talk them through. Sometimes whenever they're at the height of the emotions, after talking it through, they see it better, they see it clearer, because what we do is that we reflect their emotions, their situation. We let them think for themselves, and they realize that maybe that's not the way they want to go.
Do they ever ask flat out, should I or should not? And how do you address that?
We don't give any suggestions, we don't give any advice. What we do is that we reflect their emotions, we ask what their emotions are like, and we talk them through with what they're going through, all of that. So we walk with them through that journey, how they're going through with their lives.
Okay. Dr. Amer, you're a clinician. You see people with mental health problems. Perhaps you only see the tip of an iceberg.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on what Befrienders does, the kind of service they provide?
So first of all, again, we've got to thank all these people here, Kenny and Dr. Kartini, for the work that they're doing, and the many of the volunteers have actually put time and effort into befriending people in need. I'll say it very quickly first to say that all my patients that have called are actually quite thankful to the work that you've done. I can even rightly say that many have actually been saved as a result of the hotline that has been made by Befrienders KL. Sometimes some of these patients, when they're in crisis, they don't know who or where to go. Some of them would talk to themselves, for example. They would, maybe talk to their teddy bear. And having Befrienders, for example, is one of those situations where during the time when they need somebody, they're able to at least have a friendly voice to sort of communicate with, which, as Dr. Kartini said, can actually de-escalate a crisis. So I think in terms of where they come into our clinical sphere, there's a lot of work that they've done that's actually been quite helpful in order for patients that are in need at that particular point to be able to be helped. Even if it's just listening to a friendly voice, and then maybe getting the courage to then seek professional help if they require it.
Can we take a few steps back and look at the origins of Befrienders, Kenny? What is the history? How did you begin?
Okay, the Befrienders KL started in 1970. That was after the communal riot in 1969. Okay, so when that happened, a lot of people were feeling very restless. They were very anxious, and they didn't know what was going on. Yeah, so a group of people got together and felt that there's a need to provide support to people like this. Yeah, so they got together and they brainstormed. They talked to each other about it, and they came up with this idea of starting a helpline. Okay, and the helpline is based on the concept of active listening, which is used by the Samaritans of UK at that time. Yeah, so they started in 1970. Yeah.
Okay, and presumably, because you're too young, clearly, to have known what it was like in the early days. But do you have any sense of how as an organization and the kind of services and outreach that you do, how Befrienders has evolved over the years until, where we are today, where we speak about mental health issues very openly?
Yeah, okay. So when we started in 1970, it was only for 5 hours, 5-day week. Yeah, and we evolved to 24 hours in 1975. Yeah, so within 5 years, we have gone 24 hours. Yeah, and we are still able to maintain that up to today. Yeah, in a sense of outreach work, what I can see is that I joined the Befrienders 21 years ago. So if I compare it.
Wow.
Yes,
a lot.
You
I'm
look
not
21 yourself, Kenny.
Thank you very much. So if I see the difference between then and now, in terms of outreach work, there has been a lot of progress and development. We are very much busier as compared to then. I believe Dr. Kartini would agree to this, yeah? And also in terms of the number of calls, contacts that we receive, right? It has also increased a lot. Even if we compare to maybe last year to the year before, we could also see about 10% increase in terms of the contacts that we receive.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think that is attributed to, Dr. Kartini?
Well, I think in the past there's no globalization, there's no internet. So in the past they just depended on word of mouth. But now we have Facebook, we have Twitter. So all of these things, it gets spread quite fast. We have callers who call who say that I actually don't know what's it about, but I Googled it. So yeah, it starts off from them feeling unsure, needing help, wanting to talk to someone, and they start Googling it.
And your name is Befrienders KL, but you reach out nationally?
Okay, we are Befrienders KL. There are currently 9 centres in Malaysia. So we have in places like Ipoh, Penang, Seremban, JB, Kuching, KK, Muar, and also Malacca. Yeah.
And these are physical centres?
Physical centres with phone rooms and the phone lines. And the only difference is that Befrienders KL is the only one which is offering 24 hours emotional support.
Okay, that means for the other 8 centres in the rest of the country,
they operate maybe in the evenings for 3 hours or 6 hours. It depends. Yeah.
Okay. And we used to give we tell callers if they feel more comfortable calling from the same state because it'd be cheaper for a phone call. But now we won't have that problem anymore.
Yeah. Okay. And you are completely, fully volunteer-based, right?
Yes. Those who answer the calls, we are all non-paid volunteers.
Okay, all right. So what's the challenge there? Dr. Amer is...
I'm just amazed by the work that they're doing, Shari.
Yes.
It's amazing.
I know. For you, it's your profession, but for them, they have other jobs. They have other duties in life, we could call it that. And that must be a challenge as well, though, getting volunteers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out more about that when we come back from this quick break. There's a lot more to go through because I'd like to understand the issues that you face in just sustaining your daily operations. Now that calls to Befrienders will be free, how are you going to cope with an increase in callers, presumably? And, some of your programs, to get in more volunteers and working with supporters and survivors. So if you have any questions, you can call us at 03-7733-2900, WhatsApp us at 018-789-8899, or tweet us at BFM Radio. In the studio today from Befrienders KL are Kenny Lim, Executive Director, and Dr. Kartini Abdul Jabar, Outreach Director, as well as Associate Professor Dr. Amer Siddiq bin Amer Nordin, Consultant Psychiatrist. We'll be right back on BFM 89.9. Good afternoon and welcome back to Health and Living. I'm Tee Shiao Eek. It's our psychiatry series today, and we're talking about the news that thanks to the initiative by MCMC and 8 telcos in Malaysia, you can now call Befrienders KL's suicide hotline for free. And in the studio to discuss this development are Kenny Lim and Dr. Kartini Abdul Jabar from Befrienders KL. Kenny is the Executive Director and Dr. Kartini is the Outreach Director. And also Consultant Psychiatrist, Associate Professor Dr. Amer Siddiq bin Amer Nordin. If you have any questions, you can call us at 03-7733-2900, WhatsApp us at 018-789-8899, or tweet us at BFM Radio. We ended off the earlier part talking about that the fact that Befrienders is your hotline is run by volunteers, and that in itself is very, very commendable, the job of the volunteers, but must be also a huge challenge in terms of perhaps recruiting and training them. Kenny, could you run us through that process of working with volunteers?
Okay, so the first step for those who are interested to become a volunteer is they have to attend a compulsory preview, where the preview is the place where we explain to them what are the requirements, what are the commitment to become a volunteer, and what are the things that we're going to cover in the training program. Okay, and if after the preview they feel that they still want to volunteer and that they're still interested and that they can commit to the requirement to be a volunteer, then they would need to attend a training program of 8 sessions, 3.5 hours each. Yeah. So in the training session, we cover a lot on issues such as self-awareness, mental disorders, active listening, suicide prevention. Yeah. So basically, and also, sorry?
Grief and depression.
Grief and depression. And we do a lot of role plays, basically to prepare them when they need to go on the phone and to take calls. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So that's a preview first, followed by the training, 8 sessions of
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
And how about continuously, are you monitoring the volunteers? Are you keeping track of how they're doing? Is burnout an issue, for instance?
I think Kenny forgot to mention that the training is actually 8 months.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
1 session per month then?
No,
you have
actually,
8 sessions.
it's the training is 8 sessions, 8 weeks, yeah. But after the training, you would still have to go through supervision and probation before you become a full-fledged member, full-fledged volunteer. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, the whole process in preparing someone to be a confirmed befriender, it takes about 8 months.
Yeah, by the time during the 8 months, they would know whether this is what they want to do for the rest of their lives or not.
Do you have a dropout rate?
The dropout rate is quite high, unfortunately, because I would say a lot of people, when they come in for the training, many of them don't really know what we do, really. Okay, a lot of people have this impression that, hey, I want to come in and I want to stop suicide. I want to pull people. I want to make people feel good, feel better. Yeah, but that's not our approach. Our approach is mainly acceptance, active listening. It's more on a passive,
Emotional support.
Emotional support. Yeah, it's not so much of, hey, don't do it, don't jump. Yeah, but it's more of like giving them the space to talk about what's really troubling them. Yeah.
So it's more like, it's more supportive, isn't it? It's more of a supportive role, and getting people to just be able to share with someone who's able to listen. I think that's the kind of feedback that I get.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And every few hours per week, and that's the kind of commitment that they have to put in. That's when, during the 8 months, they realize whether they can commit or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Amer, this sounds like a rigorous process, the training and then the 8 months of supervision and really getting their feet wet. What do you think of that? Because, I'm thinking there are some inherent risks in having lay people working or rather connecting with vulnerable people.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm reassured listening to Kenny and Kartini about the rigorousness of their program. As it is, 8 months is a long time to commit, and also to be learning. And I know from volunteering with them as well that they do have, repetitive or multiple sessions with healthcare providers to provide information and knowledge to all volunteers, because the cases that they get can be varied, and they really need to understand a little bit about the illness, for example, of the person that's calling. They might also need to be refreshed about certain triggers, certain words that might encourage or be red flags for them to then seek more intervention, more help. So in terms of that, I think that's really something good. definitely it's helpful for the service because, as we've discussed, getting mental health care has various stages, and this is just one of many opportunities for people who are struggling or in crisis to actually reach out. And this, it might not seem a lot for some people as they're listening to it, but trust me, for those who really need it, this is really a lifesaver.
Okay. And so, Kenny, you wanted to mention about your upcoming intake of new volunteers. I mean, how regularly do you take volunteers in, as in when they approach you, or do you have certain stages when you're recruiting?
Yeah, we have about 2 to 3 intakes every year, at least. Yeah, sometimes we would even have 4 intakes per year. Yeah, so we will be having the next compulsory preview on the 4th of September, 10 o'clock at our center. This is specifically catered to volunteers who can come in for training on Wednesdays. So the training will be on Wednesdays.
Okay,
Yeah, for
all
8
right.
Wednesdays.
Okay. We have a message from Lily who says that she would like to thank Befrienders for their continuous efforts. She just wanted to share her experience when she was struggling with suicidal thoughts, and she called Befrienders at the time. And the volunteer who picked up her call was very understanding, very compassionate, to a point that she was crying with Lily while telling her that she was glad that Lily had stopped, that Lily chose to live. Lily says, I wanted someone anonymous to listen and not advise me what to do. And Lily says she's always thankful to Befrienders for being there. That idea, I mean, the volunteer, I mean, because on the other end of the phone, on the other end of the line, you are listening to very difficult stories and situations. And for, just the example of the volunteer who ended up crying with the caller. How do volunteers deal with that, their own emotional issues?
Okay. So for us, our advice to volunteers who have handled tough calls or difficult calls, we always encourage them to talk to each other, because at least 2 volunteers will be on duty at the same time. So what we would advise them is to get it out from them when there's a call that that is like very difficult for them, that the call is affecting them. We actually advise them to talk to their fellow befriender about it, to get it out. And also, we are all human beings, volunteers included. So for volunteers who are going through difficult moments in their life, they can actually take leave and be off the phone for a period of time until they feel better, until they resolve their own issues. Then they can actually come back and continue on with the service. Yeah.
Dr. Amer, how high is the risk of burnout among volunteers doing this kind of work?
Well, I have to admit, I've not done research on this, but the rate of burnt out among colleagues as well, as we've discussed in previous shows, is present, ever present, and therefore, again, we have to put in systems, to actually prevent that. So similarly, like they do in Befrienders, we also have a period where you might have decompression with peer support, discussing difficult cases, to sort of reassure each other regarding a case or a situation. And also, in a way, it's a form of seeking help. So the risk is present. I suspect that Befrienders also, Kenny, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, does a little bit of screening for who's eligible.
Correct,
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's at the beginning,
Yeah.
during the 8 weeks.
What's your criteria for screening?
Basically, we look for people who are warm, caring, good listener. But at the same time, after the preview, we have a short interview. It's like a chat session with the person, basically to get to know them better, and also to see how they are doing, what's their emotional state at that point of time, yeah? Because in order to volunteer with the Befrienders, you need to be in a good emotional state, yeah? So if you're struggling with some issues at that point of time, we would advise the person to maybe try to resolve that first and then come back to us later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then during the 8 weeks, sometimes when we do the role play, that's when everything comes out sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. Because your volunteers come from all walks of life, I'm sure. And people come with their personal prejudices and biases and perhaps misconceptions about mental illness. So are you able to sort of screen that out?
That one, maybe not through the interview, but through the role plays that we do, so far I think we have been able to do that. Because at the same time, I think the training creates a lot of self-awareness. And we do have people who actually dropped out because then they realize, this is not something that's right for me.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So with the telcos now waiving the call charges and now calls to Befrienders will be free, do you expect a significant increase in your callers?
Maybe at the beginning when people are not aware of it, not so many. But as the months go by, we expect to have more. But we are trying to prepare by training more people. Yeah.
I mean, realistically, what kind of challenges do you think you will face in coping with an increase if there is?
I think with the free calls now, we are also looking at maybe adding on another line. Right now we have 2 lines, and already people are giving us feedback that it's very difficult to call in. Yeah, so maybe that's something that we will look into. Yeah, and if we were to add an additional line, that means we would need more volunteers to man the lines. Yeah.
How many volunteers do you have currently?
We have about 120 at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And ideally, how many would you like to have?
As many as we can. Yeah, because we are also talking about overnight duty. That means every volunteer, because we are 24 hours, so volunteers would have to do the overnight duty where they have to come at 10 o'clock at night and then stay on until the next morning. Yeah, this is something that is quite demanding, I would say.
Yeah.
Very demanding, actually.
So we're also looking into putting a different slot between 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. so that it gives the night duty person less time at night. So there's also less stress in taking calls.
So 2 shifts, you mean overnight?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that would mean more people as well.
Yeah. Dr. Amer, Kenny mentioned that there are already people who say that they can't get through to Befrienders, and we can totally understand the reality of it. But what should people do you think, if they can't speak to this anonymous person that they're trying to reach out to?
Again, the mental health services that are available at the moment is already fairly comprehensive. So Befrienders is one of many, in a way, the jigsaw puzzle. So what they do, in essence, is actually reduce a little bit of the load of individuals that are currently in crisis seeking immediate help in hospitals. But if you really require that, you feel that your safety's at stake, and you feel that you do need to talk to somebody, again, the services that we have available is present. They can go to the accident emergency, for example. There are other lines that I've been told. I think Miasa has a line that takes in certain calls. I'm not sure what types, but people have put in certain processes in place as well to assist those in need. But as per usual, if you need the help and you can't get it, then you're going to have, a lot of 24-hour general practice service that might be able to assist. Or if you want, you can actually go to the accident emergency. And this is where, with Befrienders being in place in our ecosystem at least, a number of people might not need to go to those kind of resources, but be able to find that help. Because sometimes at times of crisis, that supportive voice plays a huge role in just sort of stabilizing that individual for the short period so that they don't actually harm themselves at that particular moment.
With the rise of our use of social media today, many people are trying to reach out on social media as well. And many times you hear of rather unfortunate cases of people basically crying out for help on social media, but not getting the right kind of response and perhaps being triggered to do, worse things. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think there's a space for befrienders on social media? This is a difficult one.
Yeah,
Yes.
because right now we have an emailing team, so sometimes we have training sessions just to get more volunteers for the training for the email group. And the email group is also trying to sustain just to answer emails on a daily basis, which is difficult because there's only about 20 of them. But the emails that they get is about 20 per day. So it's hard to catch up. So if we want to actually, realistically, we want to expand to other modes on the internet, we would actually need more volunteers.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's more hands on deck, isn't it? That you need.
Correct. Yeah. Actually, we have been looking into starting a chat because a lot of people are asking about it, especially the younger ones. Yeah. Because I think they are not so comfortable talking on the phone. They don't like to email because it takes time, so they want fast, yeah? So that is something that we've been trying to look into. But at the moment, it's really difficult for us to cope. So we have to KIV that for now. Yeah.
We'll go for a quick break first. It's our Psychiatry series today, and we're talking about the services provided by Befrienders KL. From today, 1st of August, you can actually call their hotline for free because 8 telcos in the country have waived the call charges to their helpline. So discussing that with us in the studio are Kenny Lim, Executive Director of Befrienders KL, Dr. Kartini Abdul Jabar, Outreach Director, and Consultant Psychiatrist, Associate Professor Dr. Amer Siddiq bin Amer Nordin. We'll be back after this quick break, BFM 89.9. Good afternoon and welcome back to Health and Living with me, Tee Shiao Eek. It's our Psychiatry series today, and we're looking at the recent news that just announced that you can now call Befrienders KL for free without having to pay for call charges. That actually starts today.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have Kenny Lim, Executive Director of Befrienders KL, Dr. Kartini Abdul Jabar, Outreach Director from Befrienders, and Consultant Psychiatrist, Associate Professor Dr. Amer Siddiq bin Amer Nordin, joining us to discuss what services the Befrienders provides and basically what kind of challenges you're facing in being able to cope in sustaining your operations. You've gone from strength to strength since you started in 1970. You are now a 24-hour helpline. You receive an average of 60 calls a day, 80 emails because you have 20 emails, so that adds up to 80 contacts a day, and you're looking at starting a chat line if possible. I mean, we're looking at new ways of connecting with a new generation, isn't it? People who feel more comfortable communicating through chat groups. Can you talk a little bit about some of the other challenges that you face in your daily operations? Would funding be one of them?
That would be the main challenge that we face, because as a not-for-profit organization, funding has always been an issue or a challenge to us. We rely mainly on public donation for funding. We do get a grant from the welfare department, which is 8,000 ringgit per year. So that can't even cover our monthly expenses. In a year, we need close to about 200,000 to sustain our operations. So financial, that is our main challenge. Yeah.
So I would personally do a call out right now for anybody who wants to support Befrienders KL and the services that they're doing. How can they perhaps donate towards your organization?
Okay, they can go to our website, befrienders.org.my. Okay, there is actually a page on how you can make donation, bank transfer, send us a check, and donation above 50 is tax exempted. Yeah.
Okay, all right, 50 ringgit, yeah?
Yes.
All right. Can you talk a little bit about Healing Connections? That's your suicide survivors support group. Can you explain what it is and why was there a need for it?
Okay. So Healing Connection is a support group, as you mentioned, for suicide survivors. These are people who have lost someone to suicide, be it a family member or a close friend. Okay. So what we want to provide them is a safe space to talk about their struggle, to support each other, and also learn from each other how do they manage their emotions and their feelings of surviving a suicide. Because in many times, right, when someone experiences a loss to suicide, right, it's a very complicated grief that they have to go through. And it's not easy to actually talk about it to people around you. Sometimes, you can't even tell people that you've actually lost someone to suicide. Yeah, so that's why we want to provide this space for people to be able to come and talk about their struggles without being judged. Yeah.
And how does the group operate? Do you have regular gatherings? How is it moderated, perhaps?
Okay, it's facilitated by our own trainers, and it's on every first Saturdays of the month. Yeah. At the moment, it's not very popular yet. I think maybe people are still not open to coming and share about something that is so deep, something that's so painful. Yeah, but we do feel and see a need for this. Yeah, that's why it's still ongoing. So hopefully those who have experienced loss of suicide can come forward and join us. Yeah.
Dr. Amer, what do you think about an initiative like this?
I think it's really timely and really helpful for the community to actually have such a service. Again, this is just the kind of amazing work that we're seeing coming from this particular non-governmental organization. I remember when I was in training, Prof. Maniam, one of the leading suicide experts in Malaysia, now I think Professor Emeritus Prof. Maniam, he mentioned that for every one suicide, about 1 to 9 people are going to be affected by it. So, an untimely death actually affects quite a large part of population. And having this service for friends and family that have got to go through such an experience is very helpful. It's just that, as Kenny mentioned, people grieve differently. So the way that they might access the service might be not as quick as we'd like them to be, but at least that service is available, and the people can actually get relief from it.
In your setting, it must be difficult, or I don't know if you're even able to sustain that connection with the caregivers or the family members if a patient has.
Yeah. So we rightly so. Actually, to be fair, once an untimely death happens, often if the therapist has a very good relationship with the patient and the family, somebody will come and inform us about this untimely death. And if it happens to be, like in an acute setting, within a few weeks after, say, discharge or contact with one of us, then we would have a debriefing within our service for those who have been touched by that particular death. Like, for example, the nurse that might have seen that patient, the doctor that was involved with the care, maybe the medical officer that was together with the consultant, and they would have a discussion. Sometimes the family would come in. It really depends. But as I've mentioned just now, people grieve differently. So some people take a little bit of time to come forward. So having this kind of service that's really catering, especially for these people, is actually helpful.
We have a tweet here asking how can we address the question as to why people with mental health illnesses commit suicide. And I wanted to look at that question in the context of what are the misconceptions that you still see regarding suicide, that people still have regarding suicide today? Perhaps we could look at...
First of all, thank you, Raha Ghazali, for that question. I think the most important thing is that we have to remember that suicide is a very complex condition. Mental illness and its association is just one of many links. It is something that it baffles quite a lot of people. But we just need to be aware that certain mental illness conditions particularly have a higher rate and risk of suicide. And therefore, if an individual is afflicted with this particular condition, we just need to be a bit more vigilant.
And in the course of the context that you get, Dr. Kartini, what are still some of the misconceptions that people have about suicide?
Well, people might think that suicide is only certain people would commit suicide, that someone who's happy might not commit suicide, but actually all those are misconceptions. Sometimes they don't actually show what they're feeling inside, but deep down inside maybe they're feeling something different. For our case, that's where being anonymous is important, because we don't judge what they look like on the outside. We just want to listen to what they're going through and we walk them through.
Okay. Are there any others, Kenny, that you feel should be addressed?
Yeah, I think the important thing is that people should be brave enough to talk about suicide when they see, if you have friends who actually are showing signs that they may be suicidal. I think it's important for us to basically intervene and ask how the person is doing, and basically to discuss about suicide with that person. Because a lot of people fear that talking about suicide, you may plant the idea, but research has shown that this is not true. Yeah, talking about suicide, in fact, is very helpful and can bring relief to the other person. Yeah.
It gives them permission to actually share with the person who's asking how they're really feeling. So often when people come with these ideas, if you don't ask, you won't know. And they are actually expecting you to ask so that they can then share with you. And I think this is where, as Ken had mentioned, it's a misconception that if you ask, then you're going to be planted. It's the opposite, actually. So for us who deal with people struggling with mental illness particularly, this has to be a question that we ask, because then it allows permission for the patient to actually share with us, and then we can decide the risk together, and then the treatment accordingly.
All right. And when you get calls, if the caller is reluctant to broach the subject of suicide, but is talking about the other surrounding issues in his or her life, do you ask them outright?
Yes, we actually ask the question to all our callers. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Because knowing that it's probably in the back of their minds.
Yeah, because if you don't ask, you never know, right?
Yeah.
Someone can be talking about different things, not touching about suicide at all, not showing any signs at all. But if we ask the question, you'll be surprised. Sometimes they'll just say yes.
Right.
Yeah, because the reason why they call is to reach out for help. So if we don't ask, we won't know.
Yeah.
So I've had callers who initially it sounded like they're happy, they didn't have any problems, but ultimately towards the end of the call, when I asked them, they actually felt suicidal, and that was like their turning point.
Okay. And so you help them to come to that recognition, I suppose, and to help them confront that possibility and that fear.
Yeah, basically just to allow them to talk about the pain, because they may not have the chance to talk to others about suicide.
Without being judged.
Yes, correct.
You have such a difficult job. It's really commendable what you're doing on a daily basis.
Thank you so much.
Round the clock.
Yeah.
Dr. Amer.
I know. I'm just still amazed.
Yes. Let's just maybe zoom out a little bit and look at what's ahead for mental health services in Malaysia. There's been a lot of developments and exciting things ahead just to increase awareness and outreach and all that. Can you give us an idea of what to expect?
I think thank you, Sharon. I think the biggest, probably next big thing is going to be that Let's Talk Malaysia campaign. Yeah, and I think this is really the opportunity for all of us to partake and share with the relevant stakeholders about, what type of mental health care that we want as a nation, what else that we can do as a nation collectively. Already, as we've done in this show itself over this year alone, we've had a number of positives. Yeah, the insurance have come, as we discussed the last time. Now, Befrienders has been supported. Well done to all those telcos that's supporting. We're now having this national conversation. It will happen in October, but again, we can always start it early. And we've got really a big, active now. I would like to reassure everybody we've got a really committed team in the Mental Health Advisory Council for the country in trying to see how much more can we help. And I think the hashtag Let's Talk MY or Let's Talk Malaysia allows you out there to actually converse with us and relevant stakeholders about what you would like in and for mental health. And I think this is probably one of the biggest, initiatives and opportunities that we can all gain from this particular work.
And Kenny and Dr. Kartini, do you have a final message?
The final message would be to all those who are struggling out there. I think it's okay to reach out. It's okay to, even if you're not too sure about it, give us a call and see how you feel about it. Talk to us and.
And to everybody, it's okay to talk about suicide.
That's short and sweet, right to the point. Kenny, just maybe you could share Befrienders' contact details.
Okay, the Befrienders KL 24-hour helpline is 03-7956-8145.
And the email address?
Email address is sam@befrienders.org.my.
I want to just interject and make another call out that, as we've heard, Befrienders really, looks at support. So your donations, if you, have that extra, would be really helpful to the cause. For those of you who really want to help, again, as Kenny has mentioned, there is going to be a volunteering session in September. This is really an opportunity to actually make that little bit of a difference. And again, we're really thankful to all the telcos for the free line. But if you'd like to give another line, I think they want a third one.
Oh.
Yes, call us.
Yes, Befrienders could use any support that they can get as well, so that they can continue to give people support. You've been listening to our Psychiatry series with Associate Professor Dr. Amer Siddiq bin Amer Nordin, Consultant Psychiatrist, Kenny Lim, Executive Director from Befrienders KL, and Dr. Kartini Abdul Jabar, Outreach Director from Befrienders KL. This was Health and Living on the Bigger Picture, BFM 89.9.